A long time ago, maybe a couple of years at this point, and I'm not sure if I should just end it or attempt to make something of it. When I was 23 years old, I met her sister, my ex-wife, and our relationship took off. By the time I was 26 years old, I had given birth to my son and daughter and was married, but my ex-wife had an affair a few months after we were married, and worse than that, the man she cheated on her with had introduced her to heroin. When I confronted her about it, she promised to get assistance, but that night she left. She hasn't communicated with me in 4 years, and from what I've heard, she is still living on the streets of Las Vegas with that guy. I'm not sure how true that is, but after what she did, I really don't have the time or desire to go after her. Instead, I'm focused on keeping everything together for the kids. In the end, I obtained a divorce. Nevertheless, I went on to have a great relationship with my in-laws following the incident. I still attend Christmas parties and am generally well liked by the family. My kids still stay over with their grandparents every other weekend. I am treated like a son by them. People no longer discuss my ex primarily to reassure my children. My eldest son is deeply distressed by his mother's departure. Now that he is 9, I had to take him to therapy after he confided in me that he wished his mother had passed away. By the end, when he was probably 5 or 6, she had started to verbally abuse him. That being said, her sister and her boyfriend had begun visiting frequently to see the children in the year after my ex-wife left. They were aware of my heavy workload and used my babysitting services as practice for when they were ready to have kids of their own. They are adored and spoiled by my kids, which I didn't mind because we could all use a little encouragement. They were deeply in love when they got married. However, not long after their daughter was born, her husband perished in an accident at work. As one can imagine, it has been very difficult and painful for all the parties involved. When things got too much for her to handle, or she needed time alone, I started taking her daughter, following my sister-in-law's lead. Despite receiving grief counseling for a few years, she has told me she is unable to imagine dating again, and she still wears her ring. I can't imagine the pain she must be going through, but she's come a long way and is still deeply in love with him. We talk about him a lot. We've been a more consistent presence in each other's lives for the past 2 years. I invite their aunt over for dinner a few times a week because my kids adore her. My daughter and her daughter have grown close and enjoy each other's company, which is why they host sleepovers. This has helped me move on from my ex, but I haven't entered the dating scene because I don't want to date someone who might be as dangerous as their mother. I'm not sure when it started, but I gradually began to soften up toward my sister-in-law in light of her circumstances. She makes an excellent mother. She's one of the kindest people I know, and I always laugh and smile at her sense of humor. Subsequently, I began to notice that I have a physical attraction to her. Since her late husband was a close friend and she is still clearly in mourning, I've always felt a little bad about it, so I've kept it to myself. We've spent a little more time together since COVID began because social distancing has caused us to lose touch with the majority of other people. We've never talked about anything romantic, and I try not to flirt, but last week, after the kids went to bed, it was really late, so I made us a few drinks. Not enough to get wasted, but enough that she said she'd rather stay the night. So I took the couch. This morning, when I awoke to breakfast, the 4 of us felt like the kind of family I've always desired. She did not usually kiss my forehead, but she did so on this occasion. I remained silent, but when she was gone, I discovered my son in his room playing quietly with his toys. I asked him if he was okay because he appeared to be upset. He told me point blank in the way only a kid can that he wished his aunt was his mother. I sat down with him and asked him why he thought that way, and he gave a whole bunch of reasons. Her being nice to him, that she never yells about anything, he likes seeing her at his grandparents', and she draws pictures with him, which I didn't know they did. By the end of it, my heart, which was already melting for this woman, wound up even more. I tried to bring up the topic with her parents when I dropped them off at their grandparents' house, so I could get a sense of what people would think. They didn't laugh when I joked about us acting like a married couple. Instead, they were kind of standoffish, friendly, but either they knew something or they didn't approve. It's getting too hard for me to ignore or pretend it's not getting to me. I'm in love with her. Either I've got to end it and find some way not to think of her, or I have to find some sort of way to navigate through this situation and tell her everything. If anybody out there has any insight on how to approach a widow, especially one who was married to a friend, With this sort of intention, I could really use your help. Update. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who offered me suggestions, counsel, and possible things I could say to my former sister-in-law. What I ultimately did not long after I published the first post, I realized that my kids had spent Sunday night at their grandparents' house. Usually, my niece's daughter would accompany them on these outings. I think it's critical that they continue to have a positive relationship with their mother's parents, which is why I permit these bi-weekly visits. Since her daughter likes to play with my daughter, I understood that we would each have a free night. Normally, I'd just play games or go to the gym later, but since the kids wouldn't be home, I thought it would be the ideal chance to spend time with Sylvia. I decided to text her, saying something like, "Hey, kids are out this Sunday, was thinking you might want to get dinner." About 2 months ago, the somewhat upscale establishment reopened for outdoor dining. We're hardly ever by ourselves or with a kid in another room, and I never ask her out to dinner. When she replies that she would, I become anxious because I have to act on my feelings now. She says she'll come by my place first, when I ask if she would rather meet at the restaurant or at my place and take one car. I've showered a little more than usual and dressed nicely, but not garishly. When she finally shows up, she looks amazing. She is wearing a really nice evening gown and makeup, which is not something she usually does. I must have been slack-jawed for a moment, I guess. We strike up a little conversation, and she compliments us on our appearance. Neither of us is pressing the matter because I still lack guts. The dinner was excellent. A live jazz ensemble was performing. I will most certainly return to this place. I remark that it's been about the same for me, and she tells me that this is the first adult social outing she's really had without her daughter in a few years. We are chatting, laughing, and occasionally making slight physical contact. However, I can't seem to summon the courage. I give in to enjoying myself because I don't want to sabotage this opportunity. But as we're leaving, something snaps in my head and I'm like, forget it. When we get up to head back to the car, I give her my arm and we stroll there arm in arm without any awkward moments or comments about it. I give her a warm welcome and we'll be taking her back to her car. She stops me just as I open the door. She tells me to stop and that she wants to kiss me, looking a little nervous. Dinner had no alcohol, so she is the only one doing this. We kiss. As I draw her in, I am at a loss for words to express how amazing it felt to finally touch her. For at least 30 minutes, she is kissing me outside this restaurant while leaning against my car. We exchange a few more dreamy glances. When we eventually break up before getting in the car and heading back to my place, I'm driving and she's holding my hand. I've never felt happier. I tell her that I've been feeling something for her for a long time, but I didn't want to scare her away because of the awful things we've been through. She informs me that she has been carrying a torch for the past 6 months. Since we were just friends at the time, I talked about how terrible the dates I had gone on Tinder were. She claims that when she realized she had somehow developed feelings for me, she experienced extreme jealousy and rage at the fact that I was seeing these girls. It turns out that I avoided her because of her deceased husband, and she avoided me out of fear that I would start to dislike her for the fact that I saw too much of my ex-wife, her sister. After we returned home, I invited her in, and we made the decision to resist the urge to go straight to bed. Instead, we cuddled on the couch and discussed what would need to happen in order for this to be a cooperative relationship. There were a few very moving moments. Naturally, we spoke briefly about her late husband and how she is grieving. We both agreed to make sure we can work out everything to the best of our abilities, especially since I have kids and she is still grieving. She was touched by my desire to take things slowly and is very hopeful that we'll make it work. At the end of the day, I think I'm even more in love with her now than before, but she is too. I have been a lot more cheerful these past few days than I have been in a long while. Thanks again to everyone who shared their opinions on this matter. I am truly grateful.